What's going on, guys? Welcome to Real Outdoors with yours truly, AJ Villarreal. I got a special one here for you today. We're going to be going over my 5 top baits for the month of March. Here in Tennessee, month of March, usually the water temps are anywhere from those low 40s to mid 60s. So wherever you're at, you're having those water temps, these baits are sure to get you some good bites out on the water. Before I go ahead and get into those, be sure to like and follow. I'm going to have more of these videos coming, and you don't want to miss out. Without further ado, we'll go ahead and get into my first bait. So my first bait for the month of March is going to be the OG Slim 6. It's a balsa bait, gets anywhere from 6 to 5 feet deep. It's probably my favorite, what I'm going to call finesse crankbaits. I can do little short pitch casts with this. I can bomb it out there. All really depends on what type of structure I'm fishing. But that first type of structure I'm going to fish with this bait is going to be that chunk rock. And when I'm fishing that chunk rock, that's when I'm going to use this crawdad color. So if it's dirty water, I'm going to be using this natural crawdad. If I have clearer water, I'm going to use the root beer crawdad color. What I'm going to do with this is I'm going to get it down, I'm going to try and bounce it off the bottom. So I'm bouncing off that chunk rock, getting those reaction strikes as it bounces and deflects. If I can get it down in between those cracks, I'm going to do that too. And it's really going to trigger a lot of bites for me. The other type of water I'm going to use that in is going to be those mud flats or those, that grass, anything that's really just not rocky. And that's when I'm going to use my shad pattern. So I'm going to use this citrus shad color in those dirty, murkier water conditions. And I'm going to use that Tennessee Live River Shad color as that water starts to clean up and is going to be more clear. It gives a more natural presentation. Same thing though, it's going to get down anywhere from 6 to 5.5 feet. I'm going to go ahead and just crank that down, try and get it off the bottom, rip it through the grass, really get those reaction strikes. Now for the rod I'm going to throw that bait on, I'm going to have that on a 7-1 to 7-2 medium to medium heavy fast action rod, and I'm going to have that 6-to-1 gear ratio reel. I don't want to be burning it in, that water can still be cold. I don't want it to, not trigger those strikes, so a nice 6-to-1 gear ratio is going to be perfect, and make sure that rod has a nice parabolic end. I'm going to throw that on fluorocarbon. Like I said, I throw it on 12. That way I get 6 to 5.5 feet. If I really need to get it down there, if I live in a deep lake, you can go as low as 10 and 8. And then you might get some extra feet out of your running depth. For my second bait, you're going to look no further than the Rapala Shadow Wrap. So you got the Shadow Rad Deep, and then you have your normal Shadow Wrap. This is going to be, especially early in March, or even late February, this is going to be my bait of choice as those fish on those main lake points. But also, if that cold front comes in and it's going to pull those fish off the bank a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and use my Shadow Wrap Deep. I'm going to throw that in the shad color. The nice thing about the Shadow Wrap Deep, it is a slow sinking jerk bait. So it's really going to freeze there, especially on those cold front days. I'm really going to let it sit. I'm going to count to 2, 3, sometimes even 5 before I'll give it that next twitch. I'm going to really use it on a lot of slack line. Just the regular Shadow Wrap, so I'm going to throw this similar to my OG Slim 6. I'm going to throw this on those grassier flats, those mud flats, really work that bait back to the boat. Sometimes I really do like to work this thing fast. I generate a lot of good strikes with it. I know jerkbaits are meant to be worked slow on that slack line, but I do like to make these run every now and then, and I get a lot of good fish to chase after it and really get some good bites. I'm also going to throw the jerkbait. That's going to be on a 6/8 medium rod with extra fast action, and it's going to be on an 8-to-1 gear ratio. Remember, there's a lot of slack line in there sometimes, so you want to be able to catch up when that fish hits it on the run. Maybe it bumps you going forward. You got to be able to catch up to it so you can get that good hook set. My next bait of choice is probably my favorite bait to throw. And I throw it almost year round, and that is going to be your standard spinnerbait. I like to cover a lot of water. I'm not a slow fisherman by any means. It's probably because of the musky fisherman in me, and heck, that's probably why I like this spinnerbait. It reminds me a lot of my bucktails I'm throwing. You could throw this over weeds, grass. You could roll it through timber, let it drag on the bottom. You could really fish this any way you want to. It's a really versatile bait, so it's why I always have one tied on. And it's definitely a big producer in the month of March. Early in March when that water's cold, I'm gonna make sure I have that orange blade on there. I think that triggers a lot more strikes. Similar to your crawdad colors in that dirty water, it really sticks out. For whatever reason, it just makes those fish angry and aggressive, and you can get a lot of strikes out of it. Depending on the water clarity is going to depict what blades I have. So I'm going to use those Colorado blades. When that water is dirty, it's going to give out that bigger thump. And then I'm going to use some willow blades as that water starts to clear up. The reason I like throwing a spinnerbait, it gives the appeal of a big school of fish or a small school of fish without being as big and cumbersome as an A-rig. So it's much smaller, but still looks like multiple fish swimming together. Another thing I would like to point out with spinnerbaits. This one's new, fresh out of the package, so it doesn't have one yet. But I always add not only a trailer, but a trailer hook to my spinnerbaits. Don't have one here. I gotta get some in soon. My favorite trailer hook to use is by Spearpoint Hooks, and it is going to be their 2-aught trailer hook. I think that is the best trailer hook. Really have a good hookup ratio. Don't lose many fish, if any at all. And it's just a great overall product. In terms of my trailer, that's all dependent on what type of water, or what depth of water, I should say, I'm fishing. If it's going to be that shallow water, I'm going to be using more of a bandito bug, a flat type of trailer, something that's going to keep this bait up higher in the water column. If I'm trying to get this bait down deep, I'm fishing 10, 15 feet, I'm going to use a more boot style trailer on my spinnerbait. For my spinnerbait, I like to throw it on a 7.3 to 7.2 medium heavy rod, fast action, and I'm going to have that in a 7-to-1 gear ratio reel. If I'm fishing a lot of timber, I might go anywhere up to 14-pound test fluorocarbon, but in most circumstances, I'm going to stick with that 12-pound fluorocarbon for my spinnerbait. Now this next one, it's going to seem like an odd one, but it is absolutely my most favorite way to catch bass, and that is going to be a good old trick worm. Yeah, I know it's a little early on. Fish might not be on their beds, but some of the lakes I fish, especially if you have a lot of that standing wood, or you have a lot of buckbrush, and you have wood that you know those fish are on the back side of it, or they're up in it, and you really just can't get a lure into it, that's where I'm going to use this trick worm. So I'm going to take my trick worm, I'm going to throw that on a 7-foot spinning reel, and I'm going to skip it on underneath, and I'm going to twitch it as I go through. My line for it is going to be 15-pound straight braid. I really like to work it on the top, but you could also let it sink down in and work it up. When it comes to my trick worm colors, I'm going to stick with your standard bubblegum, your pinks, your whites, anything that's really vibrant and sticks out. I want the fish to notice this. For the hook I'm going to use, and I'm going to shout out a great company, it goes right back to that trailer hook, and that is going to be the Spearpoint 5-aught hook. Let's see if you guys can get a good look at that. I think that's going to show up better. I love these Spearpoint hooks. I mean, I'm telling you, I've got fish barely by the skin, and this hook does not lose them. This hook is by far my most favorite. I put it on all my plastics, put it on all my spinnerbaits, and now I'm pretty sure they just came out with some treble hooks, and I'm going to start switching out the treble hooks on all my crankbaits to their hooks as well. This is by far one of the best hooks, and it goes perfect with this trick worm, and man, do I tell you, it catches them. I actually cashed my first check last year on Center Hill Lake, throwing just a trick worm up in the trees with this exact hook and this exact worm. For my last bait, it's a classic. Well, it's kind of a classic. So it's going to be a square bill, but Rapala just came out with their own OG Rocco balsa wood square bill. And that is going to be this bad boy right here. Man, I throw this thing just like I do the OG Slim 6. I'm going to get this banging off that rock, get it down nice and deep, getting it bouncing off timber. The nice thing about square bills is the way their bill is shaped, it really deflects and you really don't get hung up all that often. The reason I do like the Rapala Rocco, or the OG Rocco, is it's a silent square bill. It's a balsa wood bait, no rattle to it. It's just got a nice tight wobble, and it's gonna really, really catch them. For the balsa wood bait colors, I'm gonna have that citrus shad. Like I said, now that water gets darker, we got some rains coming in, I'm gonna throw this. I'm gonna have my green gizzard shad color that I'm gonna throw in. That water's a little more clear, get those bites that way. And then of course I'm going to have my standard crawfish and my root beer colors. So like I said, my natural crawdad, that's going to be in those dirtier water. That root beer color is going to be when that water clears up. Another square bill I like to throw, especially on some of the lakes up here that are really deep, and I need to get that square bill down. The OG Rocco runs about 5-6 feet, really depending on what type of line I'm using. But Strike King makes a deep diving square bill crankbait, and I love these for those conditions. I really only use 2 colors of the deep diving Strike King square bill, and that's going to be that crawdad color. Like I said, going to throw that on those rocks, get those reaction bites. And then the other color, which is one of my absolute favorites, caught some big smallmouths on Lake Cumberland, is the oyster. So the oyster style, or the oyster colored deep square bill. I'm gonna use this on those main lake points. Those fish are up on a flat. That's when you are going to see me throwing this oyster colored bait. Very natural, looks almost like a dead or dying shad. It's very pale, or maybe it's a shad that was out deep and it's finally starting to work its way in, and that's going to trigger those bites from those big bass. For my square bill, I'm going to throw that on that same as that OG6. It's going to be on that 7.1 to 7.2 medium to medium heavy rod with that 6-to-1 gear ratio. It's a crankbait. I want to get it down there, but I don't want to burn it. I don't want to get it past those fish before they truly have a chance to react. Overall, it's just going to catch them. I know these aren't the only 5 baits that catch them in March. These are my top producers in the month of March. If you don't like them, go ahead and leave a comment. I'm sure like there's stuff I should be throwing that I'm not. One big thing, and that's just shout out to my college fishing coach at TNT Tackle, is I gotta start throwing a jig. I know the jig catches them, but I'm just not a slow fisherman. I'm gonna start picking that up here soon. So see those jig fish to come shortly. Talk to you later.